The knock came at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and Ethan Cole opened the door to find a woman in a $15,000 suit standing on his cracked porch with an offer that would shatter everything he thought he knew about boundaries, decency, and the price people put on things that should never be for sale. Victoria Hale didn't waste time with pleasantries. She wanted a child. She wanted him to father it, and she was willing to pay whatever it took. What she didn't expect was for a struggling single father to look a billionaire in the eye and tell her no. If you want to see how far a story about pride, desperation, and the collision of two impossible worlds can go, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. The apartment smelled like burnt mac and cheese again. Ethan Cole stood at the stove, scraping blackened noodles off the bottom of the pot, while Sophie sat at their second-hand kitchen table, swinging her legs and humming something tuneless. She was 6 years old, all wild brown curls and gap-toothed smiles, wearing pajamas with cartoon pandas that were getting too small. He'd need to buy new ones soon. Add it to the list. "Daddy, is it supposed to be crunchy?" Sophie asked, peering into her bowl, with the kind of diplomatic concern only children could manage. "It's textured," Ethan said, forcing a smile. "Builds character." She giggled, and the sound loosened something in his chest that had been tight since he'd clocked out of his second shift at the warehouse 3 hours ago. Before that, he'd spent 8 hours fixing cars at Ramon's garage. His hands still stained with oil he couldn't quite scrub out. 2 jobs. 60-hour weeks. It still barely covered rent, groceries, and the mountain of medical bills that never seemed to shrink. "You're silly," Sophie said, taking a brave bite. She chewed thoughtfully, then reached for her water. "It's okay, Daddy. I like crunchy." Liar. Beautiful, kind liar. He sat down across from her, his own bowl untouched. The chair creaked under his weight. Everything in this place creaked or dripped or didn't quite work right. The refrigerator hummed like it was dying. The bathroom sink had a slow leak he kept meaning to fix. The whole apartment was a monument to good intentions and not enough time. "How was school?" he asked. "Good. We learned about butterflies. Did you know they taste with their feet?" "I did not know that." "Miss Morgan said we might get to see real ones if we go on a field trip, but we need permission slips and—" She trailed off, looking down at her bowl. "And what?" "Nothing. It's okay." But he knew. Field trips cost money. Even the free ones weren't really free. There were lunches to pack, maybe a souvenir from the gift shop so she wouldn't be the only kid who came back empty-handed. It was always something. "We'll figure it out, Soph. I promise." She nodded, trusting him completely, and that trust felt like carrying something fragile and precious and terrifying. He'd been carrying it alone for 2 years now, ever since Sarah died. Cancer. Stage 4. Gone in 8 months, despite every prayer, every bargain he'd tried to make with a universe that didn't negotiate. They finished dinner in comfortable silence. Ethan cleared the dishes while Sophie got her backpack ready for tomorrow, moving through their evening routine with the practiced ease of 2 people who'd learned to be a team. Bath time, story time, 1 more glass of water, 1 more hug. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered, already half asleep. "I love you more, sweetheart." He pulled her door mostly closed. She didn't like it all the way shut, and walked back to the living room. The couch was his bed now. Sophie had the only bedroom. He'd sold their old furniture to pay for Sarah's final hospital stay, kept only what mattered. A few photos. Sarah's wedding ring on a chain he wore under his shirt. Sophie's baby blanket. The knock came at 9:47. Ethan frowned, checking his phone. Nobody visited this late. He wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, he saw a woman, tall and straight-backed, wearing clothes that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Dark hair pulled into a bun so severe it looked painful. Sharp cheekbones. Eyes that seemed to calculate the worth of everything they landed on. He opened the door halfway, keeping the chain on. "Can I help you?" "Ethan Cole?" Her voice was crisp, executive, completely out of place in this neighborhood. "Who's asking?" "My name is Victoria Hale. I'd like to discuss a business proposition. May I come in?" Every instinct told him to say no. Rich people didn't show up in East Side walk-ups at 10 p.m. with good news. But curiosity and something else, some primal recognition that this moment mattered, made him slide the chain free and step back. She walked in like she was evaluating real estate. her gaze sweeping across his cramped living room with its peeling paint and secondhand everything. She didn't sit, didn't even move toward the furniture. "I'll be direct," she said. "I've come to make you an offer. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. I'm not selling anything. I'm proposing an arrangement." Ethan crossed his arms. "Lady, I don't know who you are or how you got my address, but it's late, my daughter's asleep, and I've had a long day. So unless you're here to tell me I won some lottery I didn't enter, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe. Like she wasn't used to being dismissed. "I'm the CEO of Hale Industries," she said, as if that explained everything. "Perhaps you've heard of us." He hadn't, didn't care. "Congratulations. I'm here because I want a child." The words hung in the air, bizarre and intrusive. Ethan stared at her, waiting for context that would make this make sense. None came. "Okay," he said slowly. "That's great. I'm not sure what that has to do with me. I want you to father that child." The apartment seemed to tilt. For a second, Ethan thought he'd misheard, that exhaustion had finally broken something in his brain. But Victoria Hale stood there, completely composed, like she'd just proposed a merger or a stock option. "Excuse me? I've done extensive research. You're healthy, intelligent, and possess qualities I value. Your daughter is well-adjusted despite difficult circumstances, which suggests good genetics and capable parenting. I'm prepared to compensate you significantly for your participation in this arrangement." The words came out clinical, detached, like she was negotiating a real estate deal. "You've got to be kidding me. I assure you I'm completely serious. The arrangement would be purely contractual. Artificial insemination, naturally, no physical relationship required. You'd sign away all parental rights and responsibilities. In exchange, I'm prepared to offer $5 million. Half up front, half upon successful birth." Ethan's hands curled into fists. Heat crawled up his neck, into his face. "Get out! Mr. Cole, get the hell out of my home." For the first time, uncertainty crossed her features. "You haven't even heard the full terms. I don't need to hear anything else. You walk into my home, where my daughter is sleeping, and tell me you want to buy… what? My sperm, my DNA? Like I'm some kind of…" He stopped, jaw tight, fighting for control. "You don't know anything about me, about what matters to me. I know you work 2 jobs. I know you're drowning in medical debt from your late wife's treatment. I know you're 3 months behind on rent, and your landlord has started eviction proceedings. I know your daughter needs new clothes, dental work, and that field trip permission slip you can't afford to sign." She paused. "I know $5 million would solve every single one of those problems." The fact that she knew those things, had researched him, investigated his life, made everything worse. Ethan moved to the door, held it open. "You need to leave. Now." Victoria studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a business card, and set it on the small table by the door. "If you change your mind." "I won't." She walked past him, paused in the doorway. "Everyone has a price, Mr. Cole. Not for this. Not for something like this. We'll see." He closed the door firmly behind her, turned the deadbolt, and stood there breathing hard, his hands shaking. The business card sat on the table, cream-colored, embossed. Victoria Hale, CEO. A phone number. An email address. He picked it up, ready to tear it in half, throw it away, pretend this insane conversation had never happened. But something stopped him. He looked at the card, at the elegant lettering, and thought about Sophie's 2 small pajamas. The field trip she'd tried to pretend didn't matter. The eviction notice hidden in his desk drawer. $5 million. He put the card in his pocket and went to check on Sophie. She was sprawled across her bed, one arm hanging off the edge, snoring softly. Perfect. Innocent. His whole world. Nobody was buying pieces of his life. Not for any amount of money. The next morning started the same as every morning. Alarm at 5:30, shower, cheap coffee, waking Sophie gently because she was never a morning person. They went through their routine, and Ethan tried to shake off the strangeness of last night. Probably just some rich eccentric. Probably wouldn't hear from her again. He dropped Sophie at school, kissed her forehead, reminded her he'd be late picking her up because of his warehouse shift. She hugged him tight. Love you, Daddy. Love you more. The garage was already humming when he arrived. Ramon was under a Civic, cursing in Spanish at something stubborn. Ethan grabbed his coveralls, got to work on an oil change. Easy, mindless, the kind of thing he could do half asleep. You look like shit, Ramon said, rolling out from under the Civic around 10. Thanks. You're a real confidence booster. I'm serious, man. You okay? Ethan shrugged. Just tired. You're always tired. Ramon wiped his hands on a rag. When's the last time you did something that wasn't work or Sophie? Can't remember. That's not healthy, hermano. You're going to burn out. Can't afford to burn out. Ramon shook his head but didn't push it. They worked in silence for a while, the familiar sounds of the garage filling the space, impact wrenches, radio playing classic rock, the occasional shout when someone needed a hand. Ethan's phone buzzed around noon. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Mr. Cole, Victoria Hale. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. His jaw tightened. I thought I made myself clear last night. You did. I'm calling to apologize. My approach was insensitive. I'm not accustomed to discussing personal matters, and I handled it poorly. He walked outside, away from the noise. Look, Ms. Hale, Victoria, I don't care what you call yourself. The answer is still no. It's always going to be no. So please stop calling, stop researching me, and leave my family alone. Silence on the other end. Then, I understand, but I'd like to make one more offer before I respect your wishes completely. There's nothing you can have dinner with me, just dinner. Let me explain myself properly, face to face. If you still want nothing to do with this arrangement afterward, I'll never contact you again. You have my word. Why would I do that? Because I'm asking. Because maybe I deserve a chance to be seen as more than the intrusion I was last night. And because... She paused, and for the first time her voice lost some of its armor. Because I don't know how else to do this. Ethan closed his eyes. Every logical part of his brain screamed at him to hang up, block the number, forget this ever happened. But something in her voice, that tiny crack of vulnerability, made him hesitate. One dinner, he said. Somewhere public. And then you leave me alone. Agreed. Tomorrow night? There's a restaurant. I picked the place, Marino's, on 5th, 7 o'clock. I'll be there. She hung up before he could change his mind. Ethan stood in the parking lot, staring at his phone, wondering what the hell he'd just agreed to. Ramon appeared in the doorway, eyebrows raised. Everything good? Yeah, Ethan said, pocketing his phone. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. He could feel it, the way you feel weather changing before the rain starts. Something had shifted, and he wasn't sure he could shift it back. Marino's was nothing fancy. Red vinyl booths, checkered tablecloths, a jukebox in the corner that only played Sinatra. It was the kind of place Sarah had loved, where the portions were huge and the waitress called you hun and remembered your order. Ethan got there 15 minutes early, claimed a booth in the back. He'd debated what to wear, settled on jeans and his one nice button-down, the blue one Sarah had bought him for their anniversary 3 years ago. He felt ridiculous, like this was a date instead of whatever this was. Victoria arrived exactly at 7. She looked different. Still expensive, the clothes gave that away, but softer somehow. Her hair was down, falling in dark waves past her shoulders. Less makeup. She'd traded the severe suit for tailored pants and a cream sweater that probably cost more than his car. Thank you for coming, she said, sliding into the booth across from him. Wasn't sure you'd show up at a place like this. Why not? Doesn't seem like your usual scene. A small smile. You'd be surprised what my usual scene is. The waitress came over. Diane, who'd worked here for 20 years and knew Ethan's order by heart. She eyed Victoria with open curiosity. What can I get you folks? Lasagna, side salad, water, Ethan said. Victoria studied the menu. I'll have the same. Diane raised an eyebrow but wrote it down, disappeared toward the kitchen. An awkward silence settled over the table. Victoria folded her hands, seemed to be choosing her words carefully. I want to explain why I came to you, she began. It wasn't random. It wasn't some impulsive decision. You researched me, investigated my whole life. Yes, And I know how invasive that sounds. But I'm 42 years old, Mr. Cole. I've built an empire from nothing. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But I don't have a family. I don't have connections. I've spent so long focused on success that I forgot to build anything that actually mattered. Ethan leaned back. So buy a dog. I want a child. I've always wanted one. But relationships, she trailed off, looking down. They require vulnerabilities I've never been good at. Trust I don't know how to give. I've tried dating, marriage. They all ended the same way, badly. So you decided to skip the whole relationship part and just order a baby? I know how it sounds. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're trying to buy something that shouldn't be bought. A child isn't a business acquisition. I know that. Her voice sharpened slightly. I'm not a monster. I understand what I'm proposing is unconventional. It's not unconventional. It's wrong. Why? Why is it wrong for me to want a family on my own terms? Why is it wrong to offer financial security to someone who desperately needs it in exchange for helping me have something I can't have alone? Because kids aren't transactions. They're people. They deserve parents who chose them, not because of a contract, but because they wanted them, really wanted them. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. And you think I wouldn't want my child? You think I'd love them less because of how they came into my life? I think you'd love an idea, a concept, not a real messy, complicated person. You don't know me well enough to make that judgment. No, I don't. And you don't know me well enough to ask what you're asking. The food arrived, breaking the tension. They ate in silence for a while. The lasagna was good. Diane never disappointed. Ethan watched Victoria carefully cut her food into precise bites, and something about the carefulness of it made him sad. Why me? He asked finally. Out of everyone in the world, why did you pick me? She set down her fork. Your wife's obituary. I read it while researching potential candidates. It was beautiful. The way people talked about her, about you, about the kind of father you are. And I thought, if I could give my child half of what you've given Sophie, they'd be lucky. Something in his chest twisted. Don't talk about Sarah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean she was everything. And when she died, I had to figure out how to be everything for Sophie. How to be mom and dad and comfort and strength. And I'm barely keeping it together. Most days I feel like I'm failing, but I show up, I try. Because that's what you do when you love someone. Victoria's eyes glistened. She blinked quickly, regaining control. I'm sorry for your loss, truly. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, it's admiration. You're doing something I'm not sure I could do. Then why do you want to do it alone? Why not find someone? Build something real. Because real has never worked for me. Every relationship I've tried has ended in disappointment. People want things from me, money, status, connections. Or they're intimidated by what I've built. There's always an angle, always a power dynamic. I'm tired of it. So you decided to control everything from the start. Is that so terrible? To want certainty? Yeah, actually, it is. Because kids don't come with certainty. They're chaos and mess and constant surprises. You can't control them into being who you want. I don't want to control anyone. I just want to be a mother. The rawness in her voice caught him off guard. For the first time, Ethan saw past the executive armor to something vulnerable underneath. Someone lonely. Someone who'd built walls so high she'd trapped herself inside them. Then find another way, he said quietly. Adopt. Foster. There are kids who need families right now. I've considered it, but the process, the evaluations, the questions about my lifestyle, my work hours, my lack of a partner, I'm not what they're looking for. Maybe that's telling you something. Maybe it's telling me the system is flawed. Or maybe it's telling you that raising a kid requires more than money and good intentions. Victoria met his gaze. And you think I don't have anything else to offer? I think you're trying to fit something messy and human into a neat business plan. And it doesn't work that way. Then help me understand how it does work. I can't. That's not something you can teach someone. You have to live it. She looked away, jaw tight. Ethan could see the battle happening behind her eyes. Pride versus need, control versus vulnerability. He almost felt sorry for her. I should go, she said, pulling out her wallet. I've got it. Mr. Cole, Ethan. And I said, I've got it. She didn't argue, just stood. Thank you for coming, and for being honest. That's it? You're giving up? You made your position clear. I said I'd respect it. She turned to leave, and Ethan should have let her go. Should have finished his meal, gone home, forgotten this whole bizarre encounter. But something made him call after her. Victoria. She stopped, looked back. Why do you really want this? And don't give me the corporate answer, the real reason. For a long moment, she just stood there. Then, because I'm 42 years old and I've never loved anything more than I love my work. And that terrifies me. The thought that I might die having never known what it feels like to put someone else first. To love something more than quarterly earnings and board meetings. I want to know if I'm capable of it, if there's more to me than ambition and control. Her voice dropped. I want to matter to someone in a way that isn't transactional. The honesty of it hit him hard. Ethan looked at this powerful woman standing in a family restaurant, asking existential questions she clearly didn't know how to answer, and something shifted in how he saw her. I can't give you what you're asking for, he said, but maybe you don't need what you think you need. What do I need? I don't know, but I don't think it's a contract and a turkey baster. A surprised laugh escaped her. Brief, genuine. That's certainly a more colorful way of putting it than my lawyers used. You actually drew up contracts? Of course, I draw up contracts for everything. That's sad. That's practical. It's both. They looked at each other, something unspoken passing between them. Understanding, maybe. Or just recognition that they were both broken in different ways, trying to fix things that might not be fixable. Good night, Ethan, Victoria said finally. Good night. She left, and he sat there staring at his half-eaten lasagna, wondering what the hell had just happened. His phone buzzed, text from the after-school program. Sophie was ready for pickup. He paid the bill, left a generous tip for Diane, and headed out into the night. Life went on. Tomorrow would be the same routine. Wake up, work, Sophie, sleep, repeat. This strange interlude with Victoria Hale would fade into just another weird story he'd probably never tell anyone. But as he drove to pick up his daughter, he couldn't quite shake the image of Victoria standing in that restaurant, asking questions she didn't know how to answer. Couldn't shake the feeling that something had started that neither of them knew how to stop. The business card was still in his wallet. He should throw it away. He didn't. 3 days passed before Ethan saw her again, and it wasn't planned. He was at the grocery store with Sophie, trying to make $37 stretch across a week's worth of meals. Sophie sat in the cart, swinging her legs and pointing out cereals she knew he wouldn't buy, the ones with cartoon characters and promises of free toys inside. Can we get the one with the tiger? She asked, hopeful. We've got oatmeal at home, Soph. But the tiger one has marshmallows. So does our oatmeal if we add our own marshmallows. He didn't mention they didn't have marshmallows either. She sighed dramatically, but didn't push it. They'd had this conversation before. She understood, in the way kids understand things they shouldn't have to understand yet, that money was tight, that wishes and reality didn't always match up. Ethan was comparing prices on pasta, 16 cents difference between brands, and 16 cents mattered, when he heard a familiar voice behind him. The store brand is actually better, less sodium. He turned. Victoria stood there in jeans and a simple black sweater, a basket hanging from her arm with wine and fresh vegetables that probably cost more than his entire cart. She looked different again, softer, less polished. Her hair was in a ponytail. She wasn't wearing makeup. Are you following me? The words came out harder than he meant them to. No. I live 2 blocks from here. I shop here every Saturday. She paused. Well, my assistant usually shops here, but I had the afternoon free. Sophie was staring at Victoria with open curiosity. Hi, I'm Sophie. That's a pretty name, Victoria, like a queen. Victoria's expression shifted, surprise, then something almost like nervousness. Hello, Sophie, thank you. Sophie is a lovely name, too. It means wisdom. My mom picked it, said so matter-of-factly, like she was reciting a fact from school. Your mother had good taste. Ethan watched this exchange, torn between wanting to grab Sophie and leave and being curious about how Victoria would handle an actual child. Not a concept or a contract, but a real 6-year-old with opinions and questions. Daddy won't let me get the cereal with the tiger, Sophie said, because apparently they were having this conversation now. Is that so? It has marshmallows, but we have oatmeal at home. She made a face. Oatmeal is boring. I happen to like oatmeal, Victoria said, but I agree it can be boring. Have you tried adding fruit, bananas, or berries? We don't have berries. They're expensive. Ethan's face burned. Sophie, it's okay, Daddy. We can't buy everything. You said. Victoria's eyes met his, and he saw something there. Not pity, but understanding, recognition, maybe. She crouched down to Sophie's eye level, which surprised him, her expensive jeans on the dirty grocery store floor. You know what I do when I want to make oatmeal less boring? Victoria said. I add a tiny bit of honey and cinnamon. Makes it taste like cookies. Sophie's eyes widened. Really? Really, your dad should try it. We have honey. Sophie looked at Ethan. Can we get cinnamon? It costs $2. He had $2. Yeah, Soph, we can get cinnamon. Sophie beamed, and Victoria stood up, brushing off her knees. An awkward silence settled between the adults. Around them, other shoppers pushed carts, grabbed items, lived their normal Saturday lives. I should let you finish shopping, Victoria said. Yeah. But neither of them moved. Sophie started humming again, examining a can of soup like it held the secrets of the universe. Victoria shifted her basket from one arm to the other. She's beautiful, Victoria said quietly. You're doing a good job. You don't know that. You met her 30 seconds ago. I know she's polite, articulate, and comfortable talking to strangers, which means she feels secure. I know she's aware of financial constraints, but doesn't seem anxious about them, which means you've handled that conversation well. I know she mentioned her mother without pain, which means you've helped her process grief in a healthy way. Victoria paused. So, yes, I know you're doing a good job. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. Compliments felt dangerous coming from her, like they came with strings attached. We really should go, he said. Of course, it was nice meeting you, Sophie. Bye, Victoria. They went in opposite directions, and Ethan tried to focus on shopping, but he kept thinking about Victoria crouching down to talk to Sophie, about the way she'd analyzed his parenting in 3 sentences, about the fact that she shopped at the same store he did when she could probably afford to have anything delivered. He grabbed the cinnamon. Sophie cheered. At checkout, the total came to $39 and change. He'd miscalculated. Ethan stared at the number, trying to figure out what to put back. The cinnamon? The extra pasta? Sophie watched him, and he could see her doing the math too, understanding dawning. I don't need the cinnamon, Daddy. It's okay. No, we're getting it. Just... He pulled out a jar of sauce, handed it back to the cashier. Not this. The cashier scanned the return, and the total dropped to $36.50. He paid, and they loaded bags into the cart. Sophie was quiet on the walk to the car, and that quiet felt worse than complaints. Hey, he said, loading groceries into the trunk. We're okay. You know that, right? I know. But she didn't sound convinced. They drove home, and Ethan carried the bags upstairs while Sophie ran ahead to unlock the door. The apartment felt smaller every time they came back to it, like the walls were slowly closing in. He put away groceries, made lunch, turned on cartoons for Sophie while he paid bills at the kitchen table. The math didn't work. It never worked. He shuffled money from one account to another, robbed Peter to pay Paul, and still came up short. The eviction notice was in its drawer, a ticking clock he was trying to ignore. His phone rang. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? It's Victoria. I hope I'm not interrupting. How did you get my number? I still have it from my research. I apologize for calling. I wanted to say that running into you today was genuinely coincidental. I wasn't lying about shopping there. Okay. And I wanted to thank you for letting me talk to Sophie. She's remarkable. I didn't let you do anything. She's her own person. Yes, I noticed. A pause. I also noticed the situation at checkout. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Were you watching us? No, I was 3 people behind you in line. I saw you have to choose what to put back. And nothing. I'm not calling to offer you money or make you feel worse. I'm calling because I can't stop thinking about what you said at dinner, about living it instead of planning it. I'm hanging up now. Wait, please. Just what if I could show you I'm serious about understanding? What if I could prove this isn't just some abstract idea to me? How would you do that? Let me spend time with you and Sophie, not as part of any arrangement. Just let me see what it's actually like. Let me learn. Why would I do that? Because maybe you're right. Maybe I don't understand what I'm asking for. Maybe I need to see it up close before I can know if I'm capable of it. Her voice softened. And maybe, if I'm being honest, I haven't had a real conversation with someone who wasn't trying to sell me something or get something from me in longer than I can remember. Today at the store was the most normal I've felt in years. Ethan closed his eyes. This was a bad idea. Every instinct told him it was a bad idea. If I say yes, and that's a big if, there are rules. Name them. No business talk, no offers, no money. You want to see what real life looks like? Fine. But you don't get to swoop in and fix things with your checkbook. You just watch, and you keep your opinions to yourself unless asked. Agreed. And Sophie doesn't know about any of this. About your proposal. As far as she's concerned, you're just someone I know. Of course. And if at any point I decide this is weird or wrong or too much, it stops. No arguments, no negotiations. Understood. He couldn't believe he was considering this. 1 week. You can hang around for 1 week and then we're done. This doesn't mean I'm changing my answer. I know. Okay, tomorrow's Sunday. We usually go to the park if the weather's good. You can meet us there, 2 o'clock. I'll be there, thank you, Ethan. She hung up before he could change his mind. He sat there staring at his phone, wondering what he'd just agreed to. From the living room, Sophie laughed at something on TV, the sound bright and uncomplicated. This was going to be a disaster. The next day was clear and cold, the kind of October afternoon that promised winter was coming but hadn't arrived yet. Ethan and Sophie walked to Morrison Park, the playground 3 blocks from their apartment where they spent most Sunday afternoons. Sophie ran ahead, her jacket unzipped despite his reminders, heading straight for the swings. Victoria was already there, sitting on a bench, looking completely out of place in clothes that were trying too hard to look casual. Designer jeans with artful distressing, boots that had never seen actual mud, a leather jacket that probably cost a month of his rent. You came, Ethan said, sitting down next to her. I said I would. Rich people say a lot of things. I'm learning that trust is earned, not bought. Sophie had claimed a swing and was pumping her legs, trying to go higher. She hadn't noticed Victoria yet, too focused on touching the sky. That's what this is about? Ethan asked. Earning trust? Among other things. Victoria watched Sophie swing. She's fearless. She's 6. They're all fearless at 6. Were you? No, I was the kid who checked for monsters under the bed until I was 12. A small smile. I was the kid who organized my closet by color and season. Of course you were. They sat in silence for a while. Other families filled the playground, couples pushing toddlers on slides, teenagers throwing a football, an elderly man feeding pigeons. Normal people living normal lives. Victoria seemed to absorb it all, watching like an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. Sophie eventually noticed them and came running over, cheeks flushed from exertion. Victoria, you're here! No suspicion, no questions, just pure kid acceptance. Hi, Sophie. Your dad said you'd be at the park today. Do you want to swing? I can show you how to go really high. Victoria glanced at Ethan, uncertain. He shrugged. This was her rodeo. She stood up, let Sophie drag her to the swings, and carefully sat down on one. Sophie took the swing next to her and demonstrated proper technique. Lean back, pump your legs, reach for the clouds. Ethan watched Victoria try to mimic her, awkward and overly cautious, not committing to the motion. Sophie kept giving her tips, completely unaware that she was teaching a billionaire CEO how to use a playground swing. You have to lean back more, Sophie shouted. Don't be scared. And something about that, a 6-year-old telling a grown woman not to be scared, made Ethan laugh. Actually laugh for the first time, and he couldn't remember how long. Victoria heard it, looked over at him and smiled. Then she leaned back, really committed to the swing, and went higher. Sophie cheered. They spent an hour at the park. Sophie played, Victoria tried to keep up, and Ethan watched this bizarre scene unfold. Victoria pushed Sophie on the merry-go-round until she got dizzy. Sophie taught her how to climb the jungle gym. They had an extended debate about which slide was fastest, and somewhere in there, Victoria stopped looking like a woman playing at being normal and started looking like someone who was actually enjoying herself. "I'm hungry," Sophie announced eventually. "Can we get ice cream?" "It's almost dinner time," Ethan said, "but we're at the park. Park means ice cream." "Since when?" "Since always, Daddy. Don't you remember?" He did remember. Sarah used to take her for ice cream after the park every Sunday, their little tradition. He'd stopped doing it after she died because it hurt too much, because ice cream felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. "I don't know, Soph." "There's a stand right there." Victoria pointed to the ice cream cart near the entrance. "My treat." "No," Ethan said firmly. "We talked about this. It's ice cream, not a car. Let me buy a child ice cream." The rule was no money. The rule was no fixing things with my checkbook. Ice cream isn't fixing anything. It's just ice cream. Sophie looked between them, confused by the tension. "Are you guys fighting?" "No, sweetheart," Ethan said. "We're just discussing the philosophical implications of ice cream," Victoria finished. "Your dad has principles." "What's principles?" "Rules you follow even when they make things harder." "That sounds dumb," Victoria laughed. "Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's admirable." Ethan sighed. "Fine. Ice cream. But this doesn't count as one of your billionaire gestures." "Noted." They walked to the cart. Sophie got chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. Victoria got vanilla. Ethan got nothing until Victoria gave him a look that said she'd buy it anyway, so he might as well accept it, and he ordered strawberry. They sat on a bench eating ice cream as the sun started to set, and for a few minutes they looked like any other family at the park on a Sunday afternoon. The thought unsettled Ethan, so he pushed it away. "This is the best day," Sophie said, chocolate rimming her mouth. "Can Victoria come to the park with us every week?" "We'll see, Soph." "That means maybe, right?" "That means we'll see." Victoria was quiet, focusing very intently on her ice cream. When Sophie ran off to throw her napkin away, Victoria spoke without looking at him. "Thank you for this." "For what? Ice cream?" "For letting me be here. For not making it weird." "It is weird." "I know, but you're letting me try anyway." Sophie came back, and they walked home as the streetlights flickered on. Victoria's car was still at the park, a sleek black thing that probably cost more than 3 years of Ethan's salary, but she walked with them anyway, listening to Sophie chatter about school and friends and the butterfly project they were starting. When they reached the apartment building, Sophie hugged Victoria goodbye without being prompted. "See you soon?" Victoria looked at Ethan. He nodded, against his better judgment. "See you soon, Sophie." She drove away, and Ethan and Sophie climbed the stairs to their apartment. Bath time, pajamas, another story. The routine wrapped around them, familiar and safe. "I like Victoria," Sophie said as he tucked her in. "She's nice." "Yeah, she is. Is she your friend?" "I don't know what she is, sweetheart." "Well, I think you should be friends. You smiled today. You don't smile a lot anymore." That hit harder than it should have. "I smile. Not real smiles, not like today." She yawned. "I'm glad we got ice cream." "Me too." He kissed her forehead, turned out the light, and went to the living room. His phone had a text from Victoria. "Thank you again for today. I haven't had that much fun in longer than I care to admit. If the offer stands, I'd like to see you both again this week. No pressure, just let me know. V." Ethan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "Tuesday. Sophie has soccer practice at 4. You can come if you want." The response came immediately. "I'll be there." Tuesday was chaos. Ethan left work early, picked up Sophie, drove to the soccer field on the edge of town where 26-year-olds ran in confused circles, chasing a ball while well-meaning parents shouted encouragement that made no tactical sense. Victoria showed up in a Lexus that made the other parents stare. She dressed down, yoga pants, sneakers, a pullover, but she still looked like money. Old money trying to blend in with new money, trying to look middle class. "You made it," Ethan said as she approached the bleachers. "I said I would." She sat down next to him. "I've never been to a children's soccer game." "You're not missing much. It's mostly kids running into each other, and parents pretending it's the World Cup." On the field, Sophie was defense, which meant she spent most of the time picking dandelions and waving at Ethan. He waved back. The coach, a volunteer dad named Marcus, tried to get the kids to maintain formation with limited success. "Which one is Sophie?" Victoria asked. "Number 7, the one examining a bug." "She's supposed to be playing soccer." "Yeah, well, she's 6. The bug is more interesting." They watched in silence for a while. The other team scored. Marcus clapped anyway, telling the kids, "Good try, good hustle." One of the kids started crying. Another did a cartwheel. Someone kicked the ball backward into their own goal. "This is actually delightful," Victoria said. "This is anarchy." Same thing. Halftime came. Sophie ran over sweaty and happy and chugged from her water bottle. "Did you see me, Daddy? I almost kicked the ball." "I saw. You were great." "Hi, Victoria. Do you like soccer?" "I'm learning to," Victoria said. "You're very fast." "Not as fast as Emma. She's the fastest. But I'm good at finding cool stuff on the field." "That's an important skill." Sophie beamed and ran back to her team huddle. The coach was trying to explain offense versus defense with hand gestures. Half the kids were paying attention. The other half were discussing what they wanted for snack after the game. "She's happy," Victoria observed. "Most of the time, yeah. Despite everything. Kids are resilient. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt her. Losing her mom, the money stuff. She just processes it differently." "How do you help her with that?" "I don't know. I just show up. Listen when she wants to talk. Let her be sad when she needs to be sad. Try not to let her see me fall apart." He paused. "Mostly fail at that last part." "I doubt that." "You don't know me well enough to doubt anything." "I'm starting to." The second half started. Sophie actually kicked the ball this time, and it went vaguely in the right direction. Ethan cheered. Victoria clapped. The ball got stolen immediately, but it was progress. After the game, they lost, but everyone got participation ribbons anyway. The team gathered for snacks. Sophie came over with an orange slice and sticky fingers. "Can Victoria come for pizza? Everyone's going for pizza." Ethan hadn't planned on going. Pizza meant spending money he'd budgeted for something else. But Sophie was looking at him with those eyes, the ones that knew how to break him. "I don't think I could drive," Victoria offered, "if that helps." "It's not about driving." "Then what's it about?" He couldn't say it in front of Sophie. Couldn't say that $12 for 2 slices and a soda would mean something else didn't get paid. So he just shook his head. "We should get home." Sophie's face fell. "But everyone else is going." "I know, Soph. Maybe next time." Victoria looked at him, understanding passing between them. "What if I'm hungry? What if I wanted pizza and needed someone to show me where the good place is? Would you help me with that?" It was a polite fiction, a way to let him save face. Ethan wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain his principles. But Sophie was looking hopeful again, and he was so tired of disappointing her. "Fine. We'll show you where the pizza place is." They caravanned to Angelo's, a local spot with greasy slices and arcade games in the back. The other soccer families were already there, kids running wild, parents collapsed in booths, nursing beers. Sophie ran off to play with her teammates, and Ethan and Victoria claimed a corner table. Victoria ordered a large pizza, garlic knots, and sodas. Ethan wanted to argue, but couldn't figure out how to do it without making a scene. "You're very generous," he said, the words coming out more bitter than he meant them to. "I'm hungry." "You ordered enough for 6 people." "I have a big appetite." She smiled. "Stop overthinking this." "That's easy for you to say." "Is it? You think this is easy for me? Being around you and Sophie, seeing what a real family looks like, knowing I might never have this?" Her voice stayed quiet, but there was an edge to it. "I'm not doing this to make you feel small. I'm doing this because watching you two is the first time I've felt something other than empty in years." That shut him up. The pizza came, and they ate mostly in silence while Sophie played skee-ball with her friends. Other parents stopped by their table, curious about Victoria, making small talk. She handled it well, Ethan noticed. Friendly, but not overly familiar. She asked questions, remembered names, laughed at the right moments. One of the moms, Jennifer, whose daughter played midfielder, lingered a bit longer than the others. "So how do you two know each other?" she asked, with the kind of casual curiosity that wasn't casual at all. "Through work," Victoria said smoothly. "I hired Ethan for a consulting project." "Oh, what kind of consulting?" "Automotive. He's very knowledgeable." Jennifer looked impressed, and Ethan wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. Victoria was a better liar than he would have guessed. When they finally left, Sophie protesting that she wanted 5 more minutes, then 10, then just one more game, it was past 8. Victoria walked them to their car, her Lexus gleaming under the streetlights a few spots over. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "I know it wasn't easy for you. It was pizza, not a kidney. It was pride, which is sometimes harder to give up." Sophie was already half asleep in the back seat, sticky with pizza grease and happiness. Ethan looked at her, then at Victoria. "Why are you really doing this?" he asked. "And don't give me the learning excuse. What do you actually want?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know anymore. I started this thinking I knew exactly what I wanted. A child, a family, on my terms, my timeline. But now," she trailed off, "now I'm not sure what I'm asking for. That's not reassuring. I know, but it's honest." They stood there in the parking lot, the sounds of the pizza place fading behind them, and Ethan felt the ground shifting under his feet. This was becoming something neither of them had planned for, and he didn't know how to stop it. "I should go," he said. "Thursday," Victoria said. "You mentioned Sophie has that field trip, the butterfly thing. Can I come?" "Why would you want to do that?" "Because I've never been on a field trip, and because Sophie invited me." "When did she—" "While you were in the bathroom, she said I should come see the butterflies with their feet taste buds." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. "She would say that. So can I?" He should say no. Should cut this off before it went any further, before Sophie got attached, before he started depending on someone who'd eventually disappear back into her tower of money and power. But he didn't. "Thursday, 9 a.m., meet us at the school. I'll be there." She got in her car and drove away, and Ethan sat in his beat-up Honda, listening to Sophie snore softly in the back seat, wondering what the hell he was doing and why he couldn't seem to stop. Thursday morning arrived with rain that hadn't been in the forecast, the kind of cold drizzle that made everything gray and miserable. Ethan stood outside Sophie's school holding an umbrella that had 2 broken spokes, watching parents drop off their kids in minivans and SUVs that actually started on the first try. His Honda had taken 3 attempts this morning, coughing black smoke before finally turning over. Sophie bounced on her toes next to him, unbothered by the weather, clutching her permission slip and $5 for lunch. "Do you think Victoria will really come?" she asked for the 3rd time. "She said she would. But what if she changed her mind? What if she's too busy?" "Then it's just us, like always, and that's fine." But Sophie's face said it wasn't fine, that she'd gotten her hopes up, and Ethan felt that familiar guilt twist in his chest. He shouldn't have let Victoria get this close, shouldn't have let Sophie start counting on someone who'd eventually leave. The Lexus pulled up at 8:57, and Sophie shrieked with excitement. Victoria got out carrying an umbrella that probably cost more than Ethan's car payment, wearing jeans and a raincoat that managed to look both practical and expensive. "You came!" Sophie launched herself at Victoria, who caught her with surprising grace. "I promised, didn't I?" Victoria smiled, and something about it looked genuine. Not the polished CEO smile, but something warmer. "We're going to see so many butterflies, and Miss Morgan said we might get to hold them if we're really quiet and gentle. Then we'll have to be very quiet and gentle." They checked in with the teacher, a young woman named Rachel Morgan who eyed Victoria with obvious curiosity but was too polite to ask questions. The bus was already loading, kids shouting and jostling for seats. Sophie grabbed Victoria's hand and pulled her toward the back. "You can sit with us. Daddy usually sits alone because the other parents talk about boring stuff." "I heard that," Ethan said, following them down the aisle. "It's true, though. Mrs. Patterson talks about her garden for like 1,000,000 hours. They claimed a seat near the back, Sophie wedged between Ethan and Victoria, still talking nonstop about butterfly facts she'd learned. Metamorphosis, migration patterns, the fact that some butterflies lived for only a few weeks. "That's sad," Sophie said, "to live for such a short time." "Maybe," Victoria said, "or maybe they pack a lot of living into those few weeks. Quality over quantity." "I guess, but I'd still want to live longer. I have a lot of stuff I want to do." "Like what?" "Learn to ride a bike without training wheels, get a dog, go to Disney World, eat a whole pizza by myself." She counted on her fingers. Visit 100 countries, become a scientist, maybe an astronaut, or a veterinarian. I haven't decided yet. Victoria laughed. You can be all of those things. Not at the same time, but eventually. Daddy says I can be anything I want if I work hard enough. Your daddy is right. The Butterfly Conservatory was 40 minutes outside the city, a glass building surrounded by gardens that probably looked beautiful in summer, but now just looked wet and dormant. Inside, though, it was warm and humid, filled with plants and flowers, and hundreds of butterflies floating through the air like living confetti. Sophie's whole class pressed their noses against the entrance door, waiting for Miss Morgan to review the rules. No running, no touching the butterflies unless they landed on you first, no shouting. Use inside voices. Then they were released into the butterfly habitat, and chaos became wonder. Ethan watched Sophie dart from flower to flower, trying to get butterflies to land on her outstretched finger. Other kids did the same, some successful, others not. Parents followed with cameras, trying to capture magic on phones that would never quite show what it felt like to be there. Victoria stood very still near a cluster of purple flowers, and within minutes, a monarch landed on her shoulder. She froze, barely breathing. Don't move, Ethan said quietly, coming up beside her. I'm not planning to. Her voice was hushed, awed. It's so delicate. Sophie, Ethan called softly. Come here, slowly. Sophie approached like she was stalking prey, eyes wide. The butterfly's wings moved slowly, almost hypnotic. It likes you, Sophie whispered to Victoria. How can you tell? Because it stayed. They don't stay unless they like you. I feel very honored then. They stood there for what felt like a long time, the three of them watching this tiny creature that had chosen Victoria's shoulder as a resting spot. Other kids ran past, other parents chatted, but in their small bubble, everything was still. Eventually, the butterfly flew away, and Sophie chased after it. Victoria looked at Ethan, and something passed between them, a shared moment they hadn't planned for, hadn't asked for. Thank you, she said. For what? For letting me be here. Before he could respond, Sophie was back with Miss Morgan and two other girls, begging them all to come see the chrysalis display. They followed, let themselves be dragged through the conservatory, learning about life cycles and migration and the improbable journey these fragile creatures made across thousands of miles. Lunch was in a picnic area outside, under a covered pavilion that protected them from the drizzle. Sophie sat with her friends, trading chips and cookies, while the adults claimed a separate table. Victoria had packed a lunch, another surprise. Sandwiches from somewhere expensive, judging by the packaging, but she'd transferred them to plain containers like she was trying to blend in. You made lunch, Ethan observed. I bought lunch. Let's not oversell my domestic capabilities. Still, you thought ahead. I'm capable of planning. She unwrapped a sandwich, though I'll admit I had to Google what people bring on field trips. And what did Google tell you? Sandwiches, fruit, chips, juice boxes? I think I got most of it right. You forgot the Oreos. Field trips require Oreos. Noted for next time. The phrase hung there. Next time. Like this was becoming a pattern, a routine. Ethan bit into his own sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, Sophie's favorite, and tried not to think about how natural this was starting to feel. Jennifer from soccer appeared at their table, uninvited but friendly. Ethan, I didn't know Sophie was in Miss Morgan's class. Emma is too. They're so cute together. She looked at Victoria. And you're here too. That's so sweet. Are you guys... She made a vague gesture that was supposed to indicate dating. No, Ethan said quickly. We're friends, Victoria added. Oh, well, that's nice too. It's good for Sophie to have positive female influences. After, Jennifer lowered her voice conspiratorially. Her mom. Ethan's jaw tightened. Yeah, after her mom. Jennifer either didn't notice his tone or chose to ignore it. She kept talking, something about coordinating playdates and maybe getting the girls together for a birthday party next month. Ethan nodded at appropriate intervals while mentally calculating whether he could afford a birthday present for a kid he'd never met. When Jennifer finally left, Victoria spoke quietly. I'm sorry about her bringing up Sophie's mother like that. People do it all the time. They think they're being sensitive, but they're really just being nosy. Still, it's invasive. Yeah, well, welcome to parenthood. Everyone has an opinion about how you're doing it wrong. Are they right, the opinions? Sometimes, probably more than I want to admit. He watched Sophie across the pavilion, laughing with her friends. I mess up constantly, forget to sign permission slips, send her to school with mismatched socks, let her eat cereal for dinner when I'm too tired to cook. That sounds like being human, not being a bad parent. Tell that to the moms who pack organic bento boxes and color coordinate their kids' outfits. Those moms are lying. Nobody's life is that perfect. Yours probably is. Victoria laughed, but it sounded sad. My life is eating dinner alone at my desk most nights, going home to an empty apartment, and waking up to realize I can't remember the last real conversation I had. Trust me, it's not perfect. At least you can afford your rent. The words came out harsher than he meant them to. Victoria flinched, and Ethan immediately regretted it. I'm sorry, he said. That wasn't fair. No, it was. You're right. I have advantages you don't. Complaining about loneliness to someone who's struggling to survive is tone deaf. I didn't mean, yes, you did. And you should. Call me out when I'm being oblivious. She crumpled her sandwich wrapper. I'm trying to understand, but I know I can't really. Not from the outside looking in. They sat in uncomfortable silence. Around them, kids played and parents chatted, and the rain continued its steady drumming on the pavilion roof. The eviction notice, Ethan said finally. I've got 2 weeks to come up with 3 months back rent, or we're out. How much? Doesn't matter. I can't ask you for money. I'm not offering, I'm asking. $4,200. Might as well be $1 million. Victoria didn't respond, and Ethan knew what she was thinking. That amount was nothing to her. Pocket change. An amount she probably spent on shoes or wine or whatever rich people bought without thinking. Don't, he said. Don't what? Don't try to fix it. That's not why I told you. Then why did you? Because you asked what real life looks like. That's what it looks like. Constant fear that the other shoe is going to drop. That one mistake, one unexpected expense, one bad break will destroy everything. I hate that for you. Join the club. Sophie came running over, breathless and happy. Daddy, can I get a butterfly keychain from the gift shop? They're only $5. Only. Like $5 was nothing. Ethan pulled out his wallet, found 4 crumpled bills and some change. Not enough. Maybe next time, Soph. Her face fell, but she recovered quickly. That's okay. I don't really need one. She ran back to her friends, and Ethan wanted to put his fist through something. Victoria was very carefully not looking at him, giving him the dignity of not witnessing his shame. The bus ride back was quieter. Sophie fell asleep against Ethan's shoulder, worn out from excitement. Other kids dozed too, the energy of the morning depleted. Victoria stared out the window at the passing landscape, lost in thought. When they pulled up to the school, parents were already waiting, ready to collect their kids and get on with their days. Sophie woke up groggy and disoriented, clutching Ethan's hand as they filed off the bus. Thank you for coming, she said to Victoria, hugging her goodbye. It was the best field trip ever. Thank you for inviting me. Will I see you again? Victoria looked at Ethan. He should say no, should end this before it went any further. But Sophie was looking at him with those eyes, and he was so tired of disappointing her. Maybe, he said. We'll see. They watched Victoria drive away, and then Ethan walked Sophie to the after-school program. He had to get to the garage, then the warehouse. Another 14-hour day that would leave him exhausted and still broke. His phone buzzed as he was getting in his car. A text from Victoria. I had a wonderful time today. Thank you for including me. I know you said no money, but I'm asking you to reconsider. Not as charity, as a loan. You can pay me back when things are better. Please don't let pride put Sophie on the street. V. Ethan stared at the message for a long time. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, typing and deleting responses. Yes. No. Maybe. Every option felt like giving up something he couldn't afford to lose. Finally, he typed, I'll think about it. Her response came immediately. That's all I'm asking. But it wasn't all she was asking. It wasn't even close. The next few days blurred together in the usual chaos of work and parenting and trying to make time stretch further than it wanted to go. Ethan picked up extra shifts at the warehouse, came home smelling like sweat and cardboard, collapsed on the couch while Sophie did homework at the kitchen table. Victoria texted every day. Small things. A photo of a butterfly she'd seen, an article about kids and creativity, nothing about money or arrangements or the weight of the offer still hanging between them. On Saturday, she showed up at the garage. Ethan was elbow deep in an engine trying to diagnose a misfire when Ramon whistled low. "Hermano, you got a visitor, and she's way out of your league." Ethan looked up to see Victoria standing in the doorway, completely out of place among the oil stains and power tools. She'd dressed down, jeans, simple sweater, but she still looked like she'd wandered in from a different world. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. Ramon made himself scarce with a knowing grin. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag, walked over to her. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see where you work, to understand more of your life." "It's a garage. Not much to understand. It's where you spend 60 hours a week. That's worth understanding." She looked around, taking in the bays and lifts and walls covered in calendars, featuring cars and tools. Ramon was pretending to work on a truck while obviously eavesdropping. "Can we talk outside?" Victoria asked. They walked to the small parking lot behind the building. It was cold, the November air biting through their clothes. Victoria shoved her hands in her pockets. "I've been thinking about what you said, about pride and boundaries and not wanting to feel bought." "Okay. And I get it. I really do. But Ethan, pride doesn't keep you warm at night. It doesn't keep a roof over Sophie's head." "You think I don't know that?" "I think you know it intellectually, but emotionally you'd rather suffer than accept help." "It's not help when it comes with strings attached." "What strings? I'm offering a loan. You pay me back when you can. No interest, no timeline, no—" She stopped, frustrated. "I'm not trying to buy you." "Aren't you, though? That's what this whole thing started as, a transaction. That was before." "Before what?" "Before I met Sophie. Before I saw what you've built despite impossible circumstances. Before I started to care about what happens to you both." Her voice cracked slightly. "I came to your apartment with a business proposition, but that's not what this is anymore." "Then what is it?" "I don't know, but I know I can't watch you lose your home when I could prevent it. I can't pretend that's okay just because you have principles." Ethan turned away, staring at the fence that separated the garage from the strip mall next door. A plastic bag was caught in the chain link, fluttering in the wind like it was trying to escape. "If I take your money, it's a loan. If I take your loan, what do you get out of it? Peace of mind, the knowledge that Sophie isn't sleeping in a car or shelter while I sleep in a penthouse. And nothing. There's no ulterior motive, Ethan. I'm not keeping score." "Everyone keeps score. Maybe that's been your experience, but I'm asking you to trust that I'm different." He laughed, bitter. "Trust, from the woman who showed up offering to buy my genetic material. I know how it started, and I can't take that back. But people can change, can't they? Isn't that the whole point of growth? Growth doesn't erase history." "No, but it should count for something." They stood in silence, breath misting in the cold air. From inside the garage, they could hear Ramon's radio playing something in Spanish, tools clanging against metal. $4,200, Ethan said quietly. "That's what I need. For the back rent. Okay? I'll pay you back. Every cent. It might take years, but I'll pay you back. I know you will. And this doesn't change anything. Between us. The answer to your original proposition is still no." Something flickered in Victoria's expression. Disappointment, maybe, or hurt. But she nodded. "Understood. And you can't keep buying things for Sophie? No gifts, no treats, no solving problems with your checkbook?" "That's going to be harder." "Those are the terms." "Then I accept them." She pulled out her phone. "Give me your bank information. I'll transfer it today." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Ethan recited his account number, watched her type it into her phone with steady fingers. A few taps, and it was done. Money moving from one account to another, changing his life in ways that felt both too easy and impossibly complicated. "Thank you," he said, the words feeling inadequate. "Don't thank me. Just keep being the father Sophie needs. That's payment enough." She left, and Ethan stood in the parking lot for a long time after her car disappeared. When he went back inside, Ramon was waiting with raised eyebrows. "So who's the lady?" "Someone who's helping out." "She your girlfriend?" "No." Does she want to be? I don't know what she wants. Ethan picked up a wrench, got back under the car he'd been working on, and I'm not sure I want to find out. But that was a lie. He did want to find out. That was the problem. That night, he checked his bank account on his phone, still half expecting it to be a mistake or a dream. But there it was. $4,200. More money than he'd seen in one place in 2 years. He paid the landlord the next morning, in person, cash from an ATM withdrawal that made him nervous to carry. The landlord, a man named Kowalski, who'd been more patient than he had to be, counted the bills and handed over a receipt. "You're good through January," Kowalski said. "Try to stay current from here on out." "I will, I promise." Walking back to his car, Ethan felt lighter and heavier at the same time. The immediate crisis was solved, but he'd accepted help. He swore he never would. He'd let Victoria into his life in a way he couldn't easily undo. His phone rang. Victoria. "Did you pay the rent?" she asked without preamble. "How did you know?" "I didn't. I was hoping." "Yeah, I paid it. We're good for now." "Good. That's good." A pause. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. What do you and Sophie usually do on Sundays? Besides the park?" "Depends. Sometimes we go to the library, or just stay home, watch movies, nothing exciting." "Would you consider doing something exciting, just this once?" Ethan's chest tightened. "Like what?" "The Children's Museum is having a special exhibition on space exploration. I thought Sophie might like it. And before you say no, the tickets are already purchased, non-refundable. So you'd actually be doing me a favor by using them." "That's a terrible lie." "I know, but will you come anyway?" He should say no. Should maintain boundaries, keep distance, remember that this was temporary. But he thought about Sophie's face when she talked about being an astronaut, about all the things she wanted to do that he couldn't afford to show her. "What time?" he asked. "Noon. I'll meet you there." "Victoria?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for the rent, for everything." "You already thanked me." "I know, but I mean it." "I know you do. That's why it matters." She hung up, and Ethan sat in his car outside the apartment building, watching people come and go, living their lives. Above him, somewhere in the building, Sophie was probably playing or reading or drawing, safe and warm, because someone had helped when they didn't have to. He didn't know how to feel about that. Didn't know if he should be grateful or ashamed or some complicated mixture of both. So he just sat there, letting the confusion wash over him, knowing that whatever came next was going to change things in ways he couldn't predict or control. And maybe, for once, that was okay. Sunday arrived with the kind of bright winter sunshine that made everything look cleaner than it was. Sophie woke up early, bouncing into the living room where Ethan was already awake, staring at his phone and the email Victoria had sent with the museum tickets. "Is today the Space Museum Day?" Sophie asked, climbing onto the couch next to him. "Yeah, it is." "With Victoria?" "With Victoria." Sophie grinned, then caught herself. "Is it okay that I like her? I don't want you to think I'm forgetting about Mommy." The question hit him like a fist to the chest. Ethan pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "Sweetheart, you can like whoever you want. Loving new people doesn't mean you love Mommy any less. Your heart doesn't work like that. It just gets bigger." "Does your heart get bigger too?" "I don't know, maybe." "I think it does. You smile more now like you used to before Mommy got sick." He didn't know what to say to that, so he just held her, this small person who saw too much and understood things she shouldn't have to understand. They got ready slowly, no rush for once. Ethan let Sophie pick her own outfit, purple leggings with a dress that didn't match, but she loved it, so who cared? He wore his good jeans and the sweater Sarah had given him, the navy one that still smelled faintly like her perfume if he buried his face in the collar. The museum was downtown, a modern building with glass walls and interactive exhibits that cost $30 per person to enter. Ethan had looked it up last night, done the math, felt sick at how casually Victoria must have spent nearly $100 on tickets without thinking twice. She was waiting outside when they arrived, wearing a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than his monthly grocery budget. But she smiled when she saw Sophie crouched down to accept the hug that came flying at her. "Are you ready to see space?" Victoria asked. "I've been ready my whole life," Sophie said seriously. Inside, the museum was crowded with families, kids running between exhibits, while parents chased after them with exhausted expressions. The space exhibition was on the third floor, and Sophie dragged them both toward the elevator, vibrating with excitement. The exhibit was incredible, a recreation of the International Space Station that kids could crawl through, touchscreens showing planetary orbits, a simulation that let you feel what it was like to walk on the moon. Sophie wanted to do everything at once, couldn't decide which direction to go first. Start with the moonwalk, Victoria suggested. We'll work our way through the solar system. They spent 2 hours exploring. Sophie tried on a space helmet, learned about black holes, watched a video about the Mars rovers that made her cry because the little robot was all alone up there. Ethan and Victoria followed her from station to station, occasionally catching each other's eyes over her head, sharing small smiles at her enthusiasm. At the planetarium show, Sophie sat between them in the dark, craning her neck to watch stars projected on the dome ceiling. The narrator talked about constellations, about how ancient people looked at the same sky and saw stories written in the stars. Victoria's hand was on the armrest between them. Ethan's was too. Their fingers were close enough that he could feel the warmth of her skin without touching, and he was hyper-aware of that small distance, that boundary he wasn't sure he wanted to maintain. After the show, they went to the museum cafe. Sophie got chicken nuggets and lemonade, still talking nonstop about everything she'd seen. Ethan got coffee. Victoria ordered a salad she mostly pushed around her plate. "You're not hungry?" Ethan asked. "Not really. I ate before I came." "Then why did you order food?" "Because sitting at a table without ordering felt weird." He almost laughed. Here was a woman who ran a billion-dollar company, intimidated by cafe etiquette. Sophie excused herself to the bathroom, and suddenly Ethan and Victoria were alone in a way they hadn't been in weeks. All their interactions had been filtered through Sophie, buffered by her presence. Now it was just them, and the silence felt loaded. "She's having a good time," Victoria said. "Yeah, this was really thoughtful. Thank you. I like seeing her happy. She deserves it." Victoria finally looked at him. "You both do." "We're doing okay." "Are you though? Really?" Ethan took a sip of coffee, buying time. "Better than we were. The rent thing, that was huge. I can't tell you what that means." "You don't have to." "I feel like I do. I feel like I owe you." "You don't owe me anything, Ethan. How many times do I have to say that?" "Until I believe it." Victoria's jaw tightened. "Why is it so hard for you to accept that someone might help you without expecting something in return?" "Because that's not how the world works." "Maybe not your world, but it could be." "Is that what this is? You trying to show me a different world?" "Maybe." "Is that so terrible?" Before Ethan could answer, Sophie came back, climbed into her chair, and started building a tower out of sugar packets. Crisis averted. They finished lunch, wandered through a few more exhibits, and eventually made their way back outside into the cold afternoon. "Can we get ice cream?" Sophie asked, because apparently ice cream was a year-round food in her world. "It's freezing out here," Ethan said. "That's what makes it better. Brain freeze when it's cold is extra fun." Victoria laughed. "I can't argue with that logic." They found a place 2 blocks over, a small shop that made everything fresh and had flavors like lavender honey and brown butter. Sophie got cookies and cream because she was a traditionalist at heart. Ethan got coffee. Victoria surprised him by getting mint chip. They ate standing on the sidewalk because the inside was too crowded. Sophie finished first, got mint chip brain freeze, and announced she needed to run it off. There was a small park across the street, just a patch of grass with a few benches and a sad-looking oak tree. "Can I go play for a little bit?" Sophie asked. Ethan checked his watch. 20 minutes. Then we need to head home." She ran off, and Ethan and Victoria claimed a bench. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that looked too pretty for November. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said after a while. "Sure." "What was she like?" "Your wife." Ethan tensed. "Why do you want to know?" "Because she mattered to you, because she's part of who you are. Because if we're going to be friends, and I think we are friends now, I should know about the people who shaped you." He watched Sophie climb the oak tree, fearless and graceful. She was light. That's the best way I can describe it. She made everything brighter just by being in the room. She laughed at terrible jokes, cried at commercials, believed in people even when they didn't deserve it. She sounds wonderful. She was. And when she got sick, she handled it with more grace than anyone should have to. She planned her own funeral, wrote letters for Sophie to open on birthdays and graduations, made me promise I wouldn't let grief swallow us whole. Are you keeping that promise? I'm trying. Some days are harder than others. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Do you think she'd approve of me being around? Honestly, I don't know. She'd probably have a lot of questions about why a billionaire CEO is hanging out with her broke husband and daughter. He paused. But she always said I should let people in more, that I built walls too high. Did you? Yeah, still do. I understand that. I've built a few fortresses myself. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Sophie play. Other kids had joined her now, strangers becoming instant friends the way kids do. She was teaching them how to climb the tree, boosting the smaller ones up to the first branch. I need to tell you something, Victoria said, her voice different now, serious. And I need you to hear me out before you react. Ethan's stomach dropped. Okay. I've been thinking a lot about what I want, about why I came to you in the first place. And I was wrong. Not about wanting a child. I still want that. But about how I was going about it. Victoria, let me finish. Please. She took a breath. I thought I could control everything. Plan it, execute it, make it happen on my timeline with my terms. But that's not how life works. That's not how people work. And spending time with you and Sophie has shown me that the best things aren't the ones you can schedule and contract. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want a transaction. I want connection, real connection, the kind that's messy and complicated and can't be reduced to a legal document. Ethan's heart was pounding. You're talking about us. I'm talking about the possibility of us. If that's something you'd even consider. Consider what exactly? Dating? Seeing where this goes? Building something real instead of something bought? He should have seen this coming. Should have recognized what was happening between them over the past few weeks. But hearing it stated plainly still felt like stepping off a cliff. I can't, he said. Victoria's face fell. Why not? Because Sophie just lost her mother. Because I'm barely holding it together. Because you're you and I'm me, and that's not a gap you can just bridge with good intentions. What if I want to try anyway? What if you get bored? What if the reality of dating a broke single dad isn't as appealing as the idea of it? What happens to Sophie when you decide this was a mistake? I wouldn't do that to her. You don't know that. You don't know what you'd do 6 months from now when the novelty wears off. Victoria stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. Stop telling me what I feel. Stop assuming I'm some flighty rich person who can't commit to anything real. I'm not assuming anything. I'm protecting my daughter from getting hurt. And what about protecting yourself? Is that what this is really about? Maybe. Yeah. Maybe I don't want to fall for someone who's going to leave when things get hard. Things are already hard, Ethan, and I'm still here. For now. For now. For tomorrow. For as long as you'll let me be. Her voice broke. I'm falling for you, both of you. And I know that's terrifying and complicated and probably stupid, but it's true. And I think you feel it too. He did. That was the problem. He felt it every time she smiled at Sophie, every time she showed up when she said she would, every time she tried so hard to understand a world she'd never had to navigate. I need time, he said finally. How much time? I don't know. Time to figure out if this is real or if we're just two lonely people who found each other at the right moment. And what do we do in the meantime? We keep being friends. We keep letting you be part of Sophie's life, but we don't go further until I'm sure. Victoria nodded, blinking back tears she was trying not to let fall. Okay, I can do that. Sophie was running back toward them, breathless and happy, and they both plastered on smiles, pretending the last 5 minutes hadn't happened. She chattered all the way to the car about the kids she'd met and the tree she'd climbed, and could they come back next week? We'll see, Ethan said, his standard answer. He drove them home while Victoria followed in her Lexus, and when they pulled up to the apartment, she got out too. I should go, she said, but she didn't move. Yeah. Sophie hugged her goodbye, extracted a promise that Victoria would come to her school's Thanksgiving play next week. Then she ran inside, leaving the adults alone in the fading light. I meant what I said, Victoria said quietly, about falling for you. I know, and I'll wait, however long it takes for you to trust this. What if I never do? Then at least I tried. At least I let myself feel something real, even if it doesn't work out. She got in her car and drove away, and Ethan stood there watching her taillights disappear, wondering if he was being smart or stupid, protective or afraid. Upstairs, Sophie was already in her pajamas, building a blanket fort in the living room. Can Victoria be in our family? She asked, without looking up from her construction. What makes you ask that? Because she fits, like a puzzle piece we didn't know we were missing. Life isn't a puzzle, Soph. I know, but people can fit together anyway. Like you and Mommy fit. Like you and me fit. She looked at him with those two wise eyes. Don't you think Victoria fits too? Maybe. I don't know yet. Well, I think she does. And I think you like her. Like her. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't notice because you're busy being worried all the time. That hit harder than it should have. Ethan helped her finish the fort, crawled inside with her to watch a movie on his laptop, and tried not to think about Victoria or feelings or the future. But it was impossible. She'd worked her way into their lives, and now he couldn't imagine going back to how things were before. The week passed in a blur of work and routine. Victoria texted every day, small messages that didn't push for more than he could give, a photo of something funny she'd seen, an article about parenting he might find interesting, once just a simple thinking of you both. Ethan didn't know how to respond to that last one, so he sent back a thumbs-up emoji and immediately felt like an idiot. Thursday was Thanksgiving, and they had no plans. Ethan's parents were dead. Sarah's family had drifted away after she died, too painful to stay connected. It would be just him and Sophie, eating grocery store turkey and watching parades on TV. Wednesday night, Victoria called. "What are you doing tomorrow?" she asked. "Nothing. Why?" "Come to my place. Let me cook Thanksgiving dinner." "You cook?" "I'm learning. I've been watching videos." "That's not reassuring." "Please, Ethan. I don't want to spend tomorrow alone, and I don't think you and Sophie should either." He should say no, should maintain distance, keep boundaries. But he was tired of being alone, tired of pretending he didn't want this. "What time?" he asked. 3. "I'll text you the address." "We're not dressing up." "I wouldn't expect you to." The address she sent was in Harbor Heights, the kind of neighborhood where houses had gates and security cameras and yards that looked like they belonged in magazines. Ethan pulled up to a modern glass and steel structure that was more art installation than home, feeling completely out of place in his beat-up Honda. Sophie's eyes were huge. "She lives here?" "Apparently." "It looks like a museum." "Yeah, it does." Victoria answered the door in jeans and a sweater, flour dusting her cheek and looking more frazzled than Ethan had ever seen her. "Thank goodness you're here. I think I'm killing the turkey." Inside, the house was all clean lines and expensive furniture, but the kitchen was pure chaos. Pots bubbling over, timers beeping, something smoking in the oven. Victoria was trying to manage 6 things at once and failing spectacularly. "What can I do?" Ethan asked. "Save dinner, please. I'm in over my head." He rolled up his sleeves, assessed the damage, and got to work. Turned down burners. Pulled the smoking rolls out before they became charcoal. Showed Victoria how to check if the turkey was done without cutting into it. Sophie set the table without being asked, arranging silverware with the kind of precision she'd inherited from her mother. Victoria watched them work together, and something in her expression looked like longing. Dinner was imperfect, but good. The turkey was dry in places. The mashed potatoes had lumps. The gravy was too salty. But they ate it all, laughing at Victoria's cooking disasters and telling stories that made Sophie giggle until she had hiccups. After dinner, Sophie fell asleep on Victoria's couch, full of turkey and contentment. Ethan covered her with a throw blanket and joined Victoria on the back patio where she was staring at her manicured yard. "Thank you for coming," she said. "This was the best Thanksgiving I've had in years." "Even though you almost burned down your kitchen?" "Especially because of that. It felt real, normal, like something that mattered beyond quarterly earnings and board meetings." "That's a low bar." "It's my bar, and you and Sophie just raised it." They stood in silence, breath misting in the cold air. Inside, Sophie snored softly, safe and warm. "I think I'm ready," Ethan said. "Ready for what?" "To try. To see if this could work. Between us." Victoria turned to face him, hope and fear warring in her expression. "Are you sure?" "No, but I don't think I'll ever be completely sure. And I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions." "What changed?" "Watching you try to cook dinner, seeing how hard you tried to make today special for Sophie. Realizing that you're not going to be perfect at this, but you're willing to try anyway. That matters more than I thought it would." She stepped closer. "I'm going to mess up. I'm going to say the wrong thing. Or do things that are too much, or not enough. I don't know how to be with someone. I don't know how to be a family. Neither do I. Not anymore. But maybe we can figure it out together." "What about Sophie? What do we tell her?" "The truth. That we're going to try dating, that it might not work out, but that no matter what happens between us, we care about her. And if it does work out, then we'll figure that out too, one day at a time." Victoria kissed him then, soft and tentative, like she was afraid he'd disappear. Ethan kissed her back, his hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. It felt like falling and flying at the same time, terrifying and right. When they pulled apart, Victoria was crying. "I'm going to try so hard," she said, "to be what you both need. You already are. You just don't know it yet." Inside, Sophie stirred, called out for him. Ethan went to her, scooped her up even though she was getting too big for it, felt her arms wrap around his neck. "Time to go home?" she mumbled. "Yeah, sweetheart, time to go home." Victoria walked them to the door, kissed Sophie's forehead, squeezed Ethan's hand. He drove home through empty streets, Sophie dozing in the back seat, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The first month was harder than either of them expected. Victoria tried too hard, showing up with gifts she'd promised not to buy, planning elaborate outings that exhausted everyone. Ethan pulled back when things felt too intense, retreating into old habits of independence that made Victoria feel shut out. They fought about money, about boundaries, about what it meant to be partners when their lives were built on such different foundations. The worst fight happened 3 weeks in, on a Saturday afternoon at Victoria's place. Sophie was at a birthday party, giving them rare time alone. They'd planned to have lunch, maybe watch a movie, just be together without the buffer of a 6-year-old's needs. Instead, they were shouting at each other in Victoria's pristine kitchen. "I was trying to help," Victoria said, her voice sharp with frustration. "Sophie mentioned she wanted new winter boots, and I saw a pair on sale. $150 isn't on sale," Ethan interrupted. "That's more than I spend on groceries in a week." "So what? She needed boots. Her old ones have holes." "I was handling it." When were you handling it, Ethan? Because from where I'm standing, you're so busy working yourself to death that you don't have time to notice when your daughter needs things." The words landed like a slap. Ethan's face went red, jaw tight. "Don't you dare question how I take care of my daughter." "I'm not questioning it. I'm trying to help with it. But you won't let me. You won't let me do anything without making it about your pride." "It's not pride, it's—" He stopped, searching for words. "It's knowing that the second you get tired of playing house, you can walk away. And Sophie and I will still be here, struggling, except now she'll expect things we can't afford." "Like, you think I'm playing house? Aren't you? This whole thing started because you wanted a child like it was a business acquisition. Now you're dating me, buying my kid expensive boots, and acting like you understand what our life is actually like." Victoria's eyes glistened. "That's not fair." "No? Tell me what happens when you realize dating someone with real problems isn't as romantic as you thought. When it's not museum trips and Thanksgiving dinner, but dealing with lice outbreaks and broken cars and creditors calling at 7 in the morning. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan. You say that now. I say that because I mean it. Sarah said that too, and then she died. And I had to figure out how to keep going when everything fell apart. So forgive me if I'm not ready to bet Sophie's stability on your good intentions." The silence that followed was awful. Victoria's face crumpled and she turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. "That's what this is really about," she said quietly. "You're not afraid I'll leave. You're afraid you'll love me and lose me like you lost her." Ethan wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in his throat. Because she was right, he was terrified. Terrified of letting someone in, of building something that could be destroyed, of teaching Sophie that love was worth the risk when his own experience suggested otherwise. "I can't do this," he said. "Can't do what?" "This. Us. I thought I could, but I can't." Victoria turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. "Don't do this. Don't run because you're scared." "I'm not running. I'm being realistic. We're from different worlds, Victoria, and no amount of good intentions is going to bridge that gap." "So that's it? You're just giving up?" "I'm protecting my daughter." "You're protecting yourself." Maybe she was right. Probably she was right. But Ethan grabbed his jacket anyway, headed for the door, needed air and space and distance from feelings he didn't know how to handle. "If you walk out that door, don't come back," Victoria said, her voice breaking. "I won't keep putting myself out there just to have you push me away every time things get hard." He stopped, hand on the doorknob. Every part of him wanted to turn around, apologize, take it all back. But fear won, fear and pride and the ghost of loss that still haunted him. "I'm sorry," he said, and left. He picked up Sophie from the birthday party an hour later, forcing a smile when she climbed into the car, clutching a goodie bag, and talking nonstop about the bounce house and cake. "Where's Victoria? I thought we were going to her house today." "Change of plans, Soph. Just you and me tonight." "But I wanted to show her the bracelet I made. Can we call her?" "Not tonight." Sophie's face fell. "Did you guys have a fight?" "Why would you think that?" "Because you have your mad face, the one you get when something bad happens." He tried to relax his expression, failed. We decided to take a break from seeing each other for a while." "Why?" "Because grown-up relationships are complicated." "That's a dumb answer." "Sophie, it is. You like her, she likes you, I like her. Why does it have to be complicated?" "Because life is complicated, sweetheart." She crossed her arms, staring out the window with the kind of righteous anger only kids could manage. They drove home in silence, and Ethan felt the weight of his decision settling over him like fog. The next week was miserable. Sophie asked about Victoria every day. Ethan's phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, no photos of butterflies or articles about parenting. The absence was louder than any argument. He threw himself into work, picked up extra shifts, came home exhausted and hollow. Sophie stopped asking about Victoria after the fourth day, but the hurt in her eyes every time she didn't ask was worse than the questions. Ramon cornered him at the garage on Thursday. "You look like hell, hermano." "Thanks. Really boosts my confidence." "What happened with your lady friend?" "She's not my lady friend. That's not what I asked." Ethan torqued a bolt harder than necessary. "We broke up. If you can break up with someone you barely dated." "Why?" "Because it was a mistake from the start. We're too different." "That's bullshit." "Excuse me?" Ramon leaned against the car Ethan was working on. "I saw you with her. Saw how you looked at each other. That wasn't a mistake. That was real." "Real doesn't mean it works." "No, but running from it guarantees it won't." Ramon paused. "You know what your problem is? You think loving someone means you'll lose them. Like what happened with Sarah is going to happen with everyone." "It could." "It could, or it couldn't. But living your life afraid of pain means you never get to feel joy either." Ethan wanted to argue, but he couldn't, because Ramon was right. He'd been so focused on protecting himself and Sophie from potential hurt that he'd forgotten what it felt like to actually live. That night, Sophie came into the living room where he was pretending to watch TV. She climbed onto the couch next to him, her face serious. "Daddy, can I tell you something?" "Always." "I miss Victoria, a lot. And I think you miss her too." "Soph, let me finish. I know you're scared. I'm scared too, of lots of things. Like, what if you get sick like Mommy did? What if something bad happens and I lose you too? But being scared doesn't mean I don't want to do stuff. I still go to school even though I'm scared of getting answers wrong. I still climb trees even though I might fall. Because good stuff is worth being a little scared." Ethan pulled her close, this wise little person who somehow understood life better than he did. "When did you get so smart?" he asked, his voice rough. "I told you. I've always been smart. You just forget sometimes." She was right. About all of it. He'd been so busy protecting them from potential pain that he'd pushed away someone who made them both happy. Someone who tried, even when she failed. Someone who showed up. What if I messed it up too badly? He asked. What if she won't give me another chance? Then you say sorry and mean it. That's what you always tell me to do. It's different with grown-ups. Why? Because we're stubborn and prideful and bad at admitting when we're wrong. Then maybe grown-ups should be more like kids. He kissed the top of her head. Maybe we should. The next morning was Saturday. Ethan woke up early, his mind already made up. He got Sophie dressed, made her breakfast, and told her they were going on a mission. What kind of mission? She asked, excited. An apology mission, the hardest kind. They drove to Victoria's house, and Ethan's hands shook on the steering wheel. What if she wouldn't answer the door? What if she'd already moved on, decided he was too much trouble, too damaged, too stuck in his own fear? But he had to try, for Sophie, for himself, for the possibility that maybe, just maybe, love was worth the risk. He rang the doorbell. Once? Twice? Nothing. He was about to leave when the door opened. Victoria looked terrible. Her hair was messy, eyes red, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. She'd been crying, probably recently. Ethan. His name came out small, surprised. Can we talk? She looked at Sophie, then back at him. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just give me 5 minutes. You said you couldn't do this. You said we were too different. I was wrong about a lot of things, and I need you to hear me say that. Victoria's jaw tightened, but she stepped back, let them in. The house was a mess. Dishes in the sink, papers scattered on the coffee table, evidence of someone falling apart in private. Sophie immediately went to the couch, giving them space with the kind of emotional intelligence that still surprised Ethan. He and Victoria stood in the kitchen, the site of their fight, everything feeling too familiar and too painful. I'm sorry, he said, for running, for pushing you away, for making this about my fear instead of what we could actually be. I bought the boots anyway, Victoria said, her voice flat. They're in my closet. I kept thinking I'd find a way to give them to Sophie without you knowing, which is stupid, but I couldn't return them. They're purple, her favorite color. Ethan's chest ached. You can give them to her if you want. I won't fight you on it. That's not the point. The point is, you made me feel like caring was wrong, like trying to help meant I was overstepping or playing at something I didn't understand. I know, and I was wrong. You weren't overstepping. You were showing love the only way you knew how, and instead of appreciating it, I made it about my pride. It's not just pride, Ethan. It's control. You need to control everything because you're terrified of things falling apart again. But you can't control life. You can't control love, and you can't control whether people leave or stay. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. But knowing and feeling are different things. So what changed? Why are you here now? Sophie, she reminded me that being scared isn't a reason to stop living. That good things are worth the risk, even when they're terrifying. He took a breath. And because I miss you. Both of us miss you. The apartment feels empty without your texts. Sophie asks about you every day, and I keep reaching for my phone to share something with you, and remembering I ruined that. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. You really hurt me. I know, and I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not because I want something from you, but because you deserve better than what I gave you. What are you asking for, Ethan? Another chance? A do-over? I'm asking for the chance to try again, to do it right this time, to stop running when things get hard and actually work through them instead. What if I say no? What if I decide you're too much risk? Then I'll accept that, and I'll tell Sophie we tried, and sometimes trying isn't enough, but at least we were brave enough to try. Victoria wiped her eyes, looked past him to where Sophie sat on the couch, pretending not to listen. Does she know? About your original proposal to me? No, and I don't think she needs to. That was a different thing. This is something else entirely. What is this then? What are we doing? Honestly, I don't know. But I'd like to find out, if you're willing. Victoria was quiet for a long time. Then she called out, Sophie, come here please. Sophie scrambled off the couch, came to stand between them. Victoria crouched down to her eye level. Your dad and I had a fight. A bad one, and I need to know, if we try this again, if we try to be together, are you okay with that? Because you're part of this too. Your feelings matter just as much as ours. Sophie looked at Ethan, then at Victoria, considering seriously. Will you be nice to my daddy, even when you're mad at him? I'll try my very best. Will you keep coming to my stuff, like soccer and school plays? Every single one, if you want me there. And if you and Daddy break up again, will you still be my friend? Victoria's voice cracked. Always. No matter what happens between your dad and me, you and I are friends forever. Sophie thought about this, then nodded. Okay, then I'm okay with it. But no more fighting that makes Daddy leave. That was scary. I agree. No more fighting like that. Sophie hugged Victoria, who held her tight, tears streaming down her face. Ethan watched them, his heart so full it hurt, wondering how he'd ever thought walking away was the answer. The next few months were different, better. Not perfect. They still fought, still struggled to navigate their different worlds. But they fought better. They talked instead of running. They compromised instead of demanding. They built something